Hi, welcome back to the channel. It's Radiogram time again. We haven't done one for a while on here, so I thought I was going to get into this fabulous mid-50s, mid-late 50s Sobell radiogram. It's a beast. Unfortunately, the customer's pussycat has had a good old go at the speaker cloth, which is often the way on these, but we've got some cloth the customer's chosen. It's slightly darker, but we're going to be fitting that as well. Behind these doors, it looks like a lovely cocktail cabinet, but you've got the standard. There's your BSR record deck in that side with the radio tuner amplifier and everything on that side. It's stereo, albeit not particularly wide stereo, because there's probably only 3 feet at the maximum between the speakers. But it was a new big thing back in the mid 50s and early 60s. Stereo was the new selling point. So everything, albeit in a very small box, was labelled up with stereo. So what we're going to do, spin it around so we have a look in the back. So here we are around the back of the Sobell Gram, and as you can see, it is a dusty old girl. It is, wow, I mean, it is super thick with dust in there, which is nice from a restorer's point of view. I don't think anyone's been in here since it was made. It doesn't look like it's ever been opened or out. These are all still in the places where they should be. These haven't been moved, and there's years of dust on the top of these, so these haven't been touched either. It's a full restoration. They're going to want us to do the same. The speaker cloth at front, but the actual amplifier and tuner, the radio section of it, we're going to take out now. What I love about Sobell stuff, it gives nice quality build really from an engineer's point of view or technician's point of view, in the fact that it's all on plugs. Makes it so much easier when they're trying to get a radiogram chassis out when it's on plugs and you haven't got to sit in the back soldering and cutting through wires. So next job I'm going to do is to take all of this, the radio chassis out. I just need to take a knob off the front. This should then slide down on these rails here, which will allow me to take it out and we'll get up on the bench. So we've got the Sobell, what is it, the SG670. There's your valve layout there as well, if you can quite make that out. So we've got here an ECF 80, ECH 81, EBF 89, EB91, and the push-pull output stage there, which is a couple of ECL 82s with the rectifier valve here. Take note as well, it's an early VHF one. It's using an ECF 80. Most of the time these use ECC 85s for the front end of the VHF tuner section. But yeah, so just be mindful. I've had one before where someone had replaced it with a ECC 85, obviously didn't look at the back and wonder why it wasn't working. But anyway, so just be mindful if you're doing one of these old grams. And here she is on the bench. Filthy, just the way I like to see them. Properly covered in muck and dust. Let's just change the lens on this one. You can really see it's absolutely filthy. It's balls of it coming off. So first thing we're going to do is get the vacuum cleaner in here. Let's get rid of some of this crud and dust, otherwise I'm going to be spending all afternoon sneezing. So then we'll have a quick look underneath. Actually, just before I'm going to start cleaning it, I'm going to remove this glass dial. This is probably one of the most fragile parts on any radiogram or vintage radio you're going to restore. If you crack the glass, you're in a bit of a muddle. So I'm going to carefully just get this glass completely out of the way before I start sort of doing any cleaning. We'll have a quick look underneath then. So to remove that front glass, I've got to just loosen off these two brackets here. Just held in with little Phillips screws. I can zoom right in on that probably. So just going to undo those, loosen those off, and just get that dial completely out of the way. I do not want to have to try and find a replacement one of those. So there's the dial glass all taken off safely in this nice sort of foam lined drawer, so that gets hidden all the way so that doesn't get broken. As I said before, everything is really dirty. But now we've got that off, let's just quickly spin underneath. What is that? Ferrite rod aerial, that's fine. Not a massive amount under here. They've got to, a stage where things are starting to miniaturize a little bit. They're starting to use sort of ceramic disc condensers. There's a few of the dreaded black Hunts condensers up this side here. So these will, well, because we're doing this as a full restoration for a customer, we're not going to mess around sort of test any of these. The disc ones will be fine, but anything that's wax or got Hunts written on it, we'll go through. We'll double check these 0.1s. But we've been doing this long enough to realise that these airy condensers, when they're these ceramic ones, are really, really good. We'll just double check they're all as they should be. Not much up this end either, really, to look at. We'll go through just double checking the resistors as well. But first things first, so I'm going to get the hoover on it, give it a good clean up, and then we'll concentrate on here and have a good look. Obviously here's the main smoothing electrolytic. We will be replacing that as well. So right, I'm going to turn upside down, get the hoover on it, and the next time you see it, it should be about half a stone lighter as all the dust has gone. Okay, so the dusty valves are removed and we've had a bit of a go at the chassis. It's not immaculate, don't get me wrong, but it's just going to stop me from sneezing while I'm working on it. As you can see, it's a lot cleaner than it was before. The valve sockets need to clean. There's a little bit still stuck under here. But apart from that, it's a lot cleaner to work on. One thing to be mindful of if you're working on these old sets is that a lot of the time they did use cadmium as a protector for the metal, and it's sort of anti-corrosion. This is fine, it's not got any loose stuff. Some record decks are really powdery, so I mean cadmium, to inhale it and ingest it, I don't think it's very good. Mindful that you might need to just sort of, you know, wipe it away with a damp cloth, and rather than sort of sending all the particles and muck up into the air. I'm no chemist, so I don't really know what's the good or the bad thing to do, but I don't want to either eat it or inhale it, so I try to avoid that. So that's just one thing to be mindful of, but the rest of it is just, I'm going to turn it upside down now and get on with the actual, you know, the meat and bones of the restoration, which is on something like this. It's going to be a big sort of capacitor swap out. So I'm going to do that. I'll come back in occasionally sort of show the ones we've replaced, and then we'll get moving on to the actual record deck part of it later on. So that's the underside recapped for now, just before we start doing any more testing. What we're going to just concentrate on now is the electrolytic. I mean, it tests okay, but this is going back to a customer's house. It's going to have a sort of full restoration on it. So if it was mine, I'd probably test it and just monitor it. But obviously, it's going back to a customer's house. So we're going to replace the electrolytic. Which we're going to do now, just with some nice little Nishikon ones. We're going to pop them in there on a little tag strip. So that's what I'm going to go ahead and do now. I've just got taken the electrolytic capacitor out, and there's often a really good way if you're servicing things to date the actual item, because we can clearly see here that this capacitor was made in May 1960. Dated because when they had it in the factory or in the stores, even then electrolytic capacitors needed to be reformed if they'd been on the shelf for a while, so they knew what date it was made and how long, you know, it was necessary if they're going to have to reform it a few months later. So it just dates. We know this set was made at least after May 1960. So got the new tag strip in. I've soldered it straight to the chassis, so it's one, got a really good earth connection, and two, it's super strong. And I've just painted a little bit of red nail varnish over there, just to protect, obviously, because I've straight back where the original cadmium plate was. I didn't want to expose the metal, so a little bit of nail varnish over there just to protect that. Now going to get the new electrolytic condensers fitted to the actual tag strip. The electrolytics are fitted now. Slight variation what I was going to do. I've just moved this one along here a little bit. There's these big power resistors at the back here that are connecting it all up, so it's just easier to move that one along a little bit. But yeah, so that's all done. I'm going to get it back on the top, get some valves in, and then do the sort of next part of testing to make sure everything is still working after we've recapped it, and then do some final sort of fiddling and setting everything up. I've got the speaker wires connected just on some croc clips going via the wall unit up here, which also shows me the output on the scope and plays for the workshop speakers. So what I'm going to do, I've also got the voltmeter up there connected to the HT. So I'm going to plug it in, I'm going to flick it on through the limited supply. It's just going to really bring it up nice and slowly. And I can just detect if there's any sort of initial faults just by the amount of current being drawn on the wall box. So I'm just watching it go up slowly at the minute. That's really low. A bit more. Right, it's just having up. 24 watts. 180. Right, so the HT starting to slide up there. 100 volts, 120. Should zoom in up. Obviously, you'll notice if you're doing these that the voltage will shoot up and then start to drop down as the valves get hot. Oh, there's a pop, and now I can hear something from the speakers. If you look up there, you can see there's something coming through. Speed up a little bit. Something coming through the right-hand channel, but not the left-hand channel. But this, the first one's been turned on, so there's volume controls. I've not cleaned any of the controls on it yet. There's noise. Yeah. So let's just try. So it goes gram. That's the first one. So if I just take something and tap that onto... Now the gram inputs, the record player inputs are here. Oh, there we are. That's left and that's right. So that's working. See on the scope, left and right. Good, so the amplifier part's working, which is always a good sign. So I think we've just got a whole load of... I've not done any switch cleaner at all on any of this. I think that's going to be where some of this problems are arising. Right, so what I'm going to do, I'll get some switch cleaner through it and just double check there's nothing shorting out on top. It does also use these McMurdo valve bases. Now, I don't know, I'm not mad on them. I'm sure they were fine when they were new, but they have this little V that the pin of the valve sits in. And what can happen over time is one side breaks off the actual little... almost like a little tuning fork, it looks like. One side snaps off, leaving just one side for the pin to touch, and you can then get issues with valves not making contact with the relevant pins on the base. So fingers crossed, there's not too much of that in here. I had a quick look inside the valve holes, I couldn't see anything, but you never know. So I'm going to just... The HT sitting quite happily. I'm still low voltage at the minute. We're still only running at just under 180 volts. But managed to get something out. I'm just going to get some switch cleaner in and then we'll come back and have a look where we are. So I've popped some deoxit in the volume controls and cleaned some the switches up a bit. Made them a little bit more positive than they were before. The tone control is now working. Volume is doing something. So let's have a quick tune. I think the issues with the right hand channel was just purely down to crud on the volume control, which I did suspect. I've noticed some sort of a little bit of microphony on. Better turn that down. I'll just put it onto... If you can hear that or not, I don't know. So I'm lightly tapping that valve. I noticed it earlier on. Let's get something light. I think one of these output valves is what we call microphonic, which means the actual electrodes inside are moving and causing issues, because I can hear a sort of funny noise through the left speaker, that is. But I haven't done anything with these valves yet, they're still filthy. Not that's going to make any difference to the microphony, but it just... I can find that I haven't... Yeah, so I think you'll find this one. But then again, it could be down to those crappy McMurdo sockets. But it doesn't seem to... No, I'm going to put it being that valve there. I don't think it's that one. Tap it. I think this output valve is microphonic, so we'll have to replace that. Dial bod obviously needs replacing. Let's see if we can get the what we got on here. Put it on back on. So that's doing remarkably well considering we're still at low volts at the minute. So what I'm going to do is give it full, not quite full, even just a bit more mains.
Front runner to face Anthony Joshua.
Good. We've even got a little bit of FM hiss, which is a good sign. I've got an aerial in at the moment. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to see if I can find another ECL82, and then we'll get an aerial in on the FM, make sure that's working, and then we'll have a bit of a clean up and give it another full run through and test this all, make sure it's all working as it should do. So VHF is working nicely, which is a real bonus. And these things are, you know, we get into the 60s, things are becoming a little bit more reliable. Usually you'll find with a good recap, just double checking. I've double checked some of the resistors and they're all well within spec. So, I mean, the FM sound is lovely. All I've got to do now really on here is just a really good clean up. Just need to sort that that noisy valve, that microphonic valve out there. So I'm going to go and get a new one of those, get that fitted, get it all cleaned up. And the next time you see this, will be back in the chassis with, before that I'll obviously fit a new mains lead. So it'll all be back in the chassis with a new mains lead and all good to go. And then we'll concentrate on the actual deck part of the radiogram, the record player part. Just going to turn my attention away from the actual chassis because that's all done. New mains lead is now on, and the little Bluetooth module that the customer wanted is fitted. So that's waiting to go back in the cabinet. I need to concentrate on this front that some more Pussycat has had a good go at. So I'm going to take this completely off. I think the great advantage with these Sobells, from what I can remember, is this does drop forward. I might just have to peel these little bits of brass edging strips off. They're just held on with a couple of little pins that are soldered to the back of this. So I'm going to take those off, then we'll have a look around the back and see the couple of bolts needed to take it out. But it transpires I don't need to take that brass out. I thought the last one had pins in it, but it doesn't. So it's actually attached via that channel, just in there like that. So I don't need to take it off, so I'm going to go around the back, and without making you feel too seasick, when it's around, have a look. Excuse the dust, I haven't cleaned any of that out yet. And you will see just there and under there are a couple of 4BA nuts, and it's also the same in that side at the top there. And I think that is what's holding that whole cloth in, and it sort of drops forward, enabling you to change it. It's very unusual that it's that easy to get a sort of baffle board out of a gram. Some of them are, you know, held in with multiple screws and clips and glue sometimes. So I'm hoping that that's, from memory, I've done a couple of these with it. It's quite regular. Those fronts get damaged because there's quite a lot of fabric on there. So fingers crossed, if I remember rightly, I'll take all those little nuts off and we should be able to drop the front down. Right, so moment of truth. I've taken those nuts off and hopefully, look at that. Wow. That's lovely and easy. Keep coming. And there is, oh, if only all radiograms were that simple to get the baffle board out. That's beautiful. Okay, carefully lay that on there. Speakers are here, obviously. You've got that one now and that one there for stereo. No good. There's a little tiny hole in that one, so I might have to repair that one. There's some badges from the front to kind of lift these little tabs up, and they are what hold. Carefully turn it over. The stereo, the Sobell stereo badge. So I obviously need to lift those off before I can change this cloth. I mean, not only has the cat had a go at it, and you can see it's stained as well. It's been stored somewhere where it's got sort of damp on the front or something's happened to it. And the customer's chosen a slightly darker coloured cloth. It might look a bit odd compared with the other one, but it'll look lovely when it's in. They've got some sort of darker furniture in their house, so they want to go for it's going to be like that one, a darker looking cloth, which I shall fit for them. Let's put that down there. Okay, so what I'm going to do now, take these off. It's just a matter of just lifting these very carefully. Now I've moved those lugs from behind. Careful does it. I don't want to bend it. It's soft brassy stuff. Right, there's one out. Sobell, pop that on there. And this one, the stereo badge. Perfect. So that's off too. Leave those up there. There's one little which obviously lives in that hole there. You can see through there. What I might do is I'll see how long this video is so far. I might cut it short now and then do a part 2 for the gram, but we'll see. If when I look at all the footage, if it's not too long, I might join them together. But as we are at the minute, the new spigot cloth is in.